Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday, and this is the beginning of the Ray chassis and suspension video. Yeah. I hope you guys have been looking forward to this video because I know I'm super pumped about it. I've got a really cool plan for doing this. This weekend, I'm not gonna do a ton other than take the frame that's been sitting here and get a little bit of surface rust. I'm gonna show you guys how to do a little bit of metal finishing to get the surface rust off the frame and just get it cleaned up with some Gibbs oil. And then I'm gonna take that Tinworks inner stiffener that you guys saw me explain in a previous video. We're gonna dive in a little deeper on that and we're gonna get it installed. Then once that's done, I'm gonna set the chassis up at ride height. And we're gonna set spindle height where it's gonna be with the wheels and tires that we picked. And then I'm gonna have those buddies come in and we're gonna take all the Ride Tech suspension stuff, and we're gonna mock it up, we're gonna plot out all the geometry, and we're gonna see if it's gonna work. If it's not, we're just gonna have to move some stuff or make some stuff. So this is it, we're gonna dive in, and I hope you guys have fun along the way. So metal finishing can be defined in a couple of different ways. If you guys are in the manufacturing world, the term metal finishing means to apply a coating to steel or some type of material to create the finished product. So like here's a steel bracket that has cadmium coating on it, or it could be zinc plating or some type of finished coating that's put onto metal. That would be called metal finishing in a manufacturing world. If you're a fabricator, the term metal finishing is something different. That would be taking the material and putting a finished surface on it so that your top coat, whether it be powder coat or paint or something like that, won't have any imperfections in it. So this is one of the brackets that we got from Tinworks. Tinworks has a machine that they actually run an entire sheet of steel through, and that scrubs and creates a mill or a finish that's uniform in their steel. This is awesome. Porter built back in the day, a lot of their stuff that you see comes with this kind of cool finish on it. And all it is it's just a big giant tumbler scuffer that just scrubs and sands all the mill scale off of the top of the plate or the sheet of steel. So in our case with this frame, I'm gonna metal finish with a few of my hand tools that are pneumatic, and I'm gonna kind of go through the steps. It's super easy. Any of these tools can be bought at Harbor Freight or through other fancy tool dealers, but I'm gonna show you real quick how I'm gonna metal finish some of the sections of this frame. There's some spots where they had exhaust hangers welded on, so there's weld still on there that I'm gonna knock off, and then there's surface rust that we need to get off too, mainly because I'm just obsessive compulsive and I just don't want to see the rust. So we're gonna hop in and metal finish the frame in a few areas, and I'm gonna oil it, and that'll protect it from rusting more. So let's dive into some of the tools I'm gonna use real quick. So depending on how coarse or how fine you're gonna go, you really only need two tools. You need one right angle grinder, any type of grinder that you guys wanna use that has around an 80 grit roloc disc. This will knock down a weld, and you can grind out deep scratches from like a big stone grinder or something. We use a cool backing pad that has a hard back, so it'll keep these. If you see when you get them out of the package, they've got like a contour or a cup to them. These flat backers will hold this thing nice and flat. So if you want to get a really flat surface with your 80 grit roloc, this is a really cool backer. After you do that, you want to take out these sand marks with a roloc Scotch-Brite. So this is a red roloc Scotch-Brite. And then really the final in this process is gonna be just 80 grit dual action sander. You can get these from any kind of parts store. Again, Harbor Freight, wherever you want to. These are 3M. I've had this trusty DA sander for probably 15 years. It's heavy duty, they don't make them this good anymore, but you guys can still buy all these tools, and this is super easy. These are those two welds that are sitting on top of the frame where the exhaust hanger was. I'm gonna show you how to take those off. This is that 80 grit roloc disc. We're gonna grind it, we're gonna Scotch-Brite it, and then we're gonna DA it. Okay, I didn't get too wild with the grinding and the sanding because I'm going to do a lot more metal finishing at the end, like after all the fabrication and mock-up are done, right before it goes to get powder coated or painted. That's when I'll make sure that the final finish of the frame is like really good. But for now, we just wanted to try to knock some of that surface rust off or any old welds. So the last step now before I wipe it off to be clean is I'm going to take a red Scotch-Brite pad and I'm going to take some Gibbs oil. We're going to scuff the whole frame, and then last step is I'll take some blue paper towels and wipe all that off, and then the frame should be good for a long time without rusting. All right, we're going to interrupt this Tinworks inner stiffener install to go over a little bit about the engine. Since the last time you saw this thing, it looks like a real engine. Before it was just, well, it had a stock intake manifold on it and had just some more stockish stuff on it. I really just wanted to take and invest time into this motor and really get it cleaned up. Here's a little bit of montage footage that we'll drop in here of me and Charlie, my son. Him and I were working on it on a weekend. I think he had fun for probably the first 15 minutes, and then I think he got a little tired of it. We just literally took it all down, scuffed and sanded and cleaned everything. All of this gray is all a Cerakote finish that is a air cure, and it can be shot out of like a cheapo Harbor Freight guns. I got a little Harbor Freight gun that's got a 1.0 tip in it, which is perfect. You don't have to mix Cerakote with anything. You can literally just dump it in the gun and spray it. It's a really good option. You guys can buy them straight from Cerakote's website. But anyways, that's what the gray finish is. And then some of the other things that you see on this engine, I don't really think I've talked about them in the YouTube videos. There's probably some pictures and stuff on our social medias. We got with Summit Racing and we bought the PTR intake manifold that's carbon fiber. This one's good for boost. So I got that. I got a Nick Williams cable driven throttle body. I got a really trick little throttle bracket from Motion Raceworks. And then we've got radium fuel rails, a radium fuel pressure regulator. And then I wanted to keep the truck bracket because my intake, or not my intake, but my intercooler piping comes from this side. Usually on truck water pumps, the outlet goes this way, and it kind of interfered with how clean I want my intercooler piping to be. Holley offers this water pump that is good for the truck offset, which puts the outlet on that side. I did get a Wizard radiator that has, it's still cross flow, but it has the outlet or the inlet on the radiator on the driver's side. So I'll be able to now run the outlet from the engine to that side. That also frees up room over here for my intercooler piping. So really happy with that water pump. I put a stock balancer back on the crank, and then I was able to just put a tensioner on this side since I'm not gonna run air conditioning. The other really cool things that are available for this truck bracket, I want to kind of get in depth a little bit on. The first one is something that we've had problems with on any vehicle that we race and using a stock alternator, is that we burn them up really pretty quickly. Then a few years ago when we started using PowerMaster alternators, they never burn up, they last forever. And one of the things is getting the pulley ratio right. So they have a bigger pulley on them to slow them down when the engine's at 7,000. And then the other is that they put a grounding stud on it so that the voltage regulator isn't searching for a ground, it has a dedicated heavy duty ground. So that keeps them from burning up as well. And they make these for the truck, the LQ, and whatever truck bracket. So we got one of those, bolted it right in. We also got a Turn 1 HP2 pump. So this is their hardcore race power steering pump. It has less horsepower, consumption, lower fluid temperatures. You can tell them what pressure or flow rate you want to spec, you know, if you're using a rack or a steering gearbox. What's really neat is this does away with the older style power steering pumps and goes with a more modern TC pump. They just make a billet adapter bracket that bolts to it, and then the pump bolts right in the factory truck bracket. So that's really cool. The only thing that required some type of customization is this water pump and where the idler pulley went. The idler pulley usually goes right where the water outlet is. So I had to move it this way, and just a quick Google search showed me a company called Quick Performance, KWIK. They make this, there's already a bolt here for the bracket. So all you have to do is pull out the factory bolt, and they give you a spacer, they give you a new pulley and a new bolt, and then you just have to get a longer belt. You just move the idler over out of the way. So really happy with the accessory drive. All this is OE type components, so we should have no problems with belts coming off or anything silly like that. And then obviously these are the most hardcore of these components that we could get. Feel really good about not consuming any of these items on a race weekend. That may be about all this. Oh, this is pretty cool. We got a low-car dipstick tube. These are black billet instead of the yellow plastic from the factory, which is a really cool, simple little upgrade. Another thing that I did is these intake manifolds, they want you to either run like an aftermarket remote map sensor, like you guys have seen those old-timey looking 3-bar, 1-bars or whatever that you can get from Holley, or like they were factory in 80s vehicles. Like you can do that with a remote hose, or if you want to use the GM map sensor, it can go on the bottom of the intake manifold, but it's like way up under here. So if I had a map sensor failure, and I do want to use the factory map sensor. They're like $60 and they're really good 2.5 bar map sensors. My thought process was, well, if that fails, I don't want to have to get in here, try to get the fasteners off, try to replace the sensor on a hot engine on a race weekend. I want it outside the truck. So I did a little bit of searching again on Google and found VMS Motorsports, which makes a little billet block that allows you to mount the factory GM map sensor in it, and it seals with an O-ring just like the factory sensor does. Then you can put NPT to whatever fitting, so you can just do a hose barb or whatever, so to remote mount that, which is awesome. I just didn't want to put it on the firewall or on the truck or anywhere else like that. So in Fusion, I made this little bracket that mounts it to the intake manifold, and then just put an adapter fitting in the intake and ran a little -4 hose. So that was a fun little weekend project and it turned out awesome. Check that out. But anyways, I just wanted to interrupt that video and show you a little bit about the engine. It's done. Totally ready to go back in the truck when we're ready for it. The only thing I got to do is clean up the clutch and put it back on. That whole drivetrain will be ready to put in, I guess, here in the next couple weeks. That's done and out of the way. Let's get back to the Tinworks stiffener install. Somewhere along the way of scuffing and oiling the frame, the camera died, so sorry about that. You didn't miss much. All I did was I took a microfiber and I wiped off the excess dirty oil. Now we got a frame that's protected. It won't rust while we go ahead and do all the mock-up of all the other parts. Speaking of mock-up, let's grab that Tinworks inner stiffener and throw it in. Diving into this inner stiffener, you know, I've talked about it before. Its purpose is pretty self-explanatory. It's to bolt into the frame to take out the torsional twist in the frame. This inner stiffener is actually comprised of 12 large steel brackets. There's 4 bolt-in reinforcements that go inside the C-channel frame, and then the stiffener itself bolts to those, and then there's a crossover that ties the left and right side together at the rear of the frame, and then there's an actual transmission crossmember that bolts into this as well. What I'm going to do first is locate the inner boxing plates at the front of the frame. And what's cool is they've lasered these or water jetted these around contours in the frame that already exist, and then 2 locating holes in the bottom of the frame. It's a no-brainer as to where this is going to go. Once I get this squeezed into the C-channel frame, use these 2 locating holes at the bottom to locate it, and then I just go back and then drill holes for the grade 8 hardware that'll hold it inside the frame. I'll do that now. If you guys are doing any kind of fabrication around your shops or at home, you guys should pick up one of these Pika deep hole markers. This is going to be perfect for this job where I got to reach all the way through the hole and make a mark on the frame. In my opinion, the true litmus test of a good manufacturer is great instructions with photos, labeled hardware, and as always, a couple little treats in the box. And real quick, here's my arsenal for just marking and drilling these holes. Some of the stuff's a no-brainer, but some of it might be a little bit of a trick or a tip from an insider. Once the hole's marked, just center punch and a hammer. The other thing, after you drill a hole, is a countersinker to get the burrs out. And then some of my, you'll think this is funny, big wang. But some of my more common sized drill bits, like 1/4 inch, they actually make these stepper bits now, which are amazing. So once you drill your 1/8 inch hole, you can run this in and step it up right to 1/4. Since I can't get to that last hole to deburr it from the outside, I can use my little deburring tool from the inside. If you guys didn't notice, I'm starting with an 1/8 inch drill bit, going to a stepper 1/4, then going to a stepper that's right below 3/8, and then the final one, I'm running the 3/8 bit through from the opposite side to try to help me deburr. The whole reason for that is that I can drive the hole any which way I want as I step up in diameter of hole. So if I didn't center punch in exactly the center and I see it right off the bat, I can steer it or aim the hole by moving my drill at an angle to drill the 1/8 inch hole. If I see that I'm getting off like through one of the next diameter drill bits, I can kind of lean the drill. You guys can't see it from the inside, but every single one of those holes that I drilled I ate off just the outside of the Sharpie mark on every single one of them. So hit them dead center on every single mark. That's the way you do it. Don't just go right to hogging it with a 3/8 bit right off the bat. All right guys, this has been a super stress-free installation. Probably one of the smoothest installs I've ever done of a part. And we are down to the last bit, the transmission crossmember. Toss this in, shoot a few seconds of B-roll just showing you how this thing looks installed in the chassis. I'm extremely happy with its fit. This is a lot of steel. It's gonna do quite a bit for this old frame. All right, y'all, that's it for this weekend. I did get all the inner stiffener installed and the frame is oiled and scuffed and not rusty anymore. So it's a good amount of progress for a Saturday. There's not a ton of time on my weekends. I have a lot of normal stuff to do, yard work and family stuff and soccer games. I did get that wrapped up and I'm super happy about it. I got one last part that we can install on that inner stiffener, but I'm gonna wait until we get into the rear suspension stuff because I think it might interfere with one of the Tinworks add-on options, which is a rear stiffener that goes all the way up to almost where the coilovers would go, where any of that energy happening from the rear suspension is. It's this big DOMX, and it goes at the very back of the inner stiffener, right back here, and it runs all the way up to where my C's would be. Anyways, this will technically fit right now, but I think that my upper control arms will interfere with this. So we're gonna wait and hold out on this. Next time you see me, we're gonna have a lot of suspension stuff to go on and a lot of technical information on geometry to go over. So appreciate you guys watching. See you in a couple weekends.